Hey Saints, just wanted to kind of jump on the bandwagon of all the Middle East events here. I mean, really, this is pretty unbelievable in terms of what's going on. And um, I just wanted to point out a couple of things. It's very easy to be looking at Ezekiel 38, 39 because it certainly appears like, the buildup for that war is happening now. But I also don't want to lose track of some of the stuff that's going on in Israel as well. And, maybe that is going to be Psalm 83 related. Um, but there's so many moving parts, and really it, it's kind of a mess with all the moving parts right now. I know God's hand is orchestrating, but it seems like on every front something is tilled up. And so let's take a look at a few of those and just see how it goes. Um, so the first article here is Russia sending the 150,000 troops to Syria, to battle ISIS. Most of the articles you can read on this right now about this troop buildup and what they're going to do. Speculation has way more to do with securing the oil fields, uh, instead of just getting rid of the insurgents. But what do you have? You've got the command headquarters currently of the Iran, Russia, and I guess the Chinese ships have pulled, at least one has pulled in, aircraft carrier has pulled into the region. They're being coordinated out of Baghdad, Iraq. So, in my little way of thinking here, this is pretty stunning because you've got the oil fields controlled by ISIS right now, and the rest of them, controlled by Bashar al-Assad, who Russia now is, coming in to invade and clean out. So Russia is going to be in control of those Syrian oil fields. They're already in Baghdad coordinating these attacks, probably with direct influence over the Iraqi government in doing so. And so you have the Iraqi oil fields coming under the control of Russia as well. And when you look at this now, you don't need 150,000 troops probably to clean out ISIS. As a matter of fact, there was articles out just yesterday that said ISIS only has hours left, to live basically because Russia had so many devastating attacks. Now, they've been attacking the rebels the Syrian non-ISIS rebels as much as they've been attacking ISIS. But basically, this is the whipping boy kind of excuse to come down to fight ISIS, to bring all this military into the region. So the other thought I had when I saw this had a lot more to do with how do you get 150,000 troops to Syria if you're in Russia? And something else that may or may not play into this. There's been let me see here, a pullback, an agreement in Ukraine that both sides are confirming this pullback from East Ukraine, where the heavily Russian populated side of Ukraine. So, here you can see East Ukraine, and they got to pull back beyond these borders type of thing. Approximate areas under rebel control. So they're going to pull back from these borders, all the equipment and all that. And you can see hopefully you can see this on the map, the area we're talking about. So that eastern wing of Ukraine is going to experience a pullback, which in my mind just opens the door now for Russia. If they have 150,000 troops and they got to get down to Syria, I suppose you could keep loading them onto ships and trying to fly them down there, but I'm not a military guy. Maybe someone can post me comments below. I don't know, would you just march them down there? Or, I mean, not, vehicle transport over ground, I should say, really not march, but, I'm just looking at the map here. And so here's this eastern leg of Ukraine that Russia uh, everybody's pulling back from. It's almost like creating a funnel. Now, I know Turkey's the odd man out. Turkey, the election of Erdogan, I think it was the last time around, he was calling for all Islamic believers, Sunni, Shia, whatever, Alawite, to march on the city of Jerusalem. That was one of his election rallying cries. But he still remains, NATO aligned, and he just filed a formal complaint because Russia flew some of their attack fighters over the Turkey airspace while bombing in Syria. And so it's hard to say. We know from Ezekiel 38:39 that Turkey is part of this. And so is there going to be promises made to Turkey that it's not going to stop at the border of Syria, but to fulfill, Erdogan's desire to march on Jerusalem? Do they keep on coming down through? I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's almost like you've got this chute. That's what I'm seeing here. A chute to come down through. You clipped off Ukraine, you've got a funnel that could come on down through. Now, Russia's already got control of Syria, they got control of Iraq. And, you guys follow the news, but Iran is the sponsor of Hezbollah in Lebanon, which has more control in terms of troops than the government of Lebanon does. And Iran is now the chief sponsor in that little tiny area of Gaza and the West Bank. And so it's pretty incredible, this funnel that's being created. Turkey, now Georgia was overrun by Russia a couple of years ago. I don't know the current status, whether Russia moves through Georgia without debate or not, but boy, if you get a path through Georgia, Turkey, you could almost make this a ground invasion. And again, I don't know how you move 150,000 troops. Maybe you put them on a boat and you float them through somehow. I don't even know if the Black Sea has an exit into the Mediterranean. Maybe it does. So there's a lot I don't know, but it sure seems interesting here how this might be forming in terms of the Northern Army coming down, and that's the way it's described. The Northern Army is specifically mentioned in Ezekiel 39. Go read it. And it's also mentioned, I think it's in Joel 2 toward the end, verses 20 to the end. I think they're called the Northern Army there as well. And I think those are parallel verses in there. So go off and read that. I found this, this is a peak oil. It's a news and message board, I guess ostensibly for the oil industry. But that's what made people speculate this Russian move is about, is to, gobble up all these oil-rich areas. And you guys know this, Russia economy is in really sad shape because of all the drops in the crude oil price for so long. So part of this is if Russia brings 150,000 troops in, how long can they afford to continue holding that much military, in a sustained battle, for instance, outside of their region without having some new infusion of funds? And so, of course, they would have to take over the oil fields and start producing and shipping oil to cover the cost of everything they're doing, since they're on the ropes financially. So these things seem to play together in my mind. So there's the partnership with Turkey being the question mark, and then inside of Israel, more rockets coming out of Gaza. On the Temple Mount side, you've got Jordan, who controls the Temple Mount, complaining because the Israeli government is stopping. They with police force have shut down for periods of time the entire old city, but they also stopped Muslim worshipers from making it to the mosque. And Jordan's really upset. in terms of the way the Israeli police have been putting down these riots that have occurred at the Temple Mount. And we know that in Psalm 83, you've got Gaza, you've got Jordan um, listed as the um, sons of Lot, I think is what it's called. Ammon and Moab is the other way to think about it, which is also in Zephaniah 2. And then we see this here. Palestinian attacks arise coming out of the West Bank and a threat for the next intifada. And so, what a mess, what a mess that's going on here. You could literally see Ezekiel 38, 39 and or the Psalm 83 scenario at any point in time. And one other thing that's intriguing for me here, this article in Debka, Russian S-300s enforce Syria, northern Israel, no-fly zone. And I was trying to think about, well, that's really interesting because, there's a lot of thought about, well, is Israel going to have to attack Iran and their nuclear arms production capability? But now you've got, Syria with a no-fly zone, and you've got all these Iranian, well, they call them advisors, but special forces and advisors or whatever, along with equipment and all that coming down into Syria. I don't know if Israel would have the guts to hit Iran right now. As a matter of fact, the other thing, with all that military just over the border, from the Golan Heights there in Israel, does that embolden Hezbollah or Hamas to make their attack? Because anything that Israel does, or any screw up, if you want to say, that Israel may have in terms of responding to threats and attacks, could touch off a major war inside of Israel, with the threat being that Iran is just over the border now, and the airspace is closed. So how would Israel go and respond to Iran if they were launching attacks from Hezbollah or from Hamas or even from the Jordan side, right? And so you got all of that. Matter of fact, there was even articles, I think I did a video on this a week or two ago, about attacks being threatened from southern Israel coming out of, Egypt or the Sinai area into Israel. The military commanders in Israel were really concerned about that. And so you basically have tagged all the bases for Psalm 83, and you've tagged almost all the bases in the war of Gog and Magog, Ezekiel 38 and 39, except for the one question mark would, in my mind, still be Turkey. Although they're calling for a march on Jerusalem, Turkey is still NATO aligned enough, and like I say, protesting the stuff that Russia is doing when their fighters are crossing into Turkey's airspace, that something would have to give there. And my thought is, if Russia is opening up this chute, are they going to make a ground movement with the 150,000 coming down into Syria? I'm not a military expert. If some of you guys that are watching this were in the military, maybe you can comment. Would you move 150,000 troops by ground, or would you try and do that all by air and by sea, given the routes that are available, to Russia, for Russia to use? I'd be curious what people think on that one. So it's a mess right now. I think, we can't just stay Ezekiel 38, 39 focused, Isaiah 17 focused. I think we also have to consider that buildup may be just the kind of confidence and backing that Hezbollah, Hamas, the West Bank Palestinians, and even ISIS and the terrorist groups out of the south of Israel need to make their attack on Israel, because of the threat of the response in the closed airspace from where those threats would be backed up from coming out of Iran and potentially even Russia. So there it is, saints. Hang on. It's pretty darn amazing we're living during this time. As one commentator said, I thought we'd be gone by now, which is true. But I mean, we're not in the tribulation period yet, and so if God's going to leave us here to the last minute, who knows what we're going to see before we're out of here. So God bless you, saints. Have a good week.